Christian conservative student blocked from serving on student government at the University of Massachusetts Amherst. Next on the Campus Roundup. Hello, I'm Dr. Duke, and this is the Campus Roundup at the College Fix. This week we're looking at a conservative Christian student who was recently blocked from serving on the student government at the University of Massachusetts Amherst. To talk more about this, we welcome that student, Richard Cullen. Richard, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's great.
Well, this is a really interesting story, I think, in terms of it gives us a really inside look how nonpartisan political processes oftentimes get hijacked on college campuses. Tell us a little bit first, Richard, what is the structure of student government at the University of Massachusetts Amherst, and what were you applying for?
Right. So when I was looking to get back in the Student Government Association, I applied for a vacant Senate seat. So basically the process for this is that the Student Government Association has multiple committees. And one of these committees is called the Outreach and Development Committee. So what you do is you submit an application to them, and so you basically put your name in, and then they'll interview you. And then they take all their candidates and kind of rate them on campus involvement and any other sort of things they have. And they'll put you up for the confirmation in front of the entire Senate. So the purpose of sort of the Outreach and Development Committee, or ODC is what they're abbreviated as, is to sort of weed out people and look at what they've done. So when you get to the final Senate hearing, it's mostly a look at qualifications, but also mostly procedural things. So making sure there was no bias and making sure that the committee followed all the rules that have been set forth.
So it sounds like once you get past that initial process, this is basically a rubber stamp, right? Once you've been vetted, the big committee meets and they usually just forward people through. Is that fair to say?
Yes, it's typically a rubber stamp. I mean, for example, the hearings after mine were each like 4 minutes, and all of them were unanimously approved. Once again, I think it's literally been, at least from what I've heard, a decade, potentially longer. We don't really know since the last time anyone was denied a Senate seat. It's kind of something that hasn't happened in front of the whole entire Senate in a very long time.
So when you went up to your hearing, what kind of things happened to you that didn't happen to other candidates? What was the process like for you in particular?
So usually these are pretty brief and aren't that in length. So when I got up there, I think I gave some pretty solid policy proposals. There's some procedural things that haven't been really followed in the last year or couple of years that I kind of suggested we should go back on track. I also suggested kind of building better relations with the administration. So I think I was offering a lot more fair criticisms of the student government. And I think those who had very large disagreements with me sort of saw this as more of an attack on them, which it really wasn't. I was more of just critiquing the body, as I want to come in there and help them change things for the better. And so what I was met with was constant questioning, kind of follow-ups. I think I was asked the same exact question for like 3 or 4 times. And it's just, I've never, as a senator and someone who went through that process my freshman year, and then going through the process as a senator, seeing the process as a senator and carrying it out, I think it was just vastly different than how most people are received. I think giving my background of being in a fraternity and being the vice president of the College Republicans definitely created a lot of anonymity towards me when I got up there.
So share with us, Richard, some of the questions that you said they kept repeating to you. I'm assuming it was almost like they didn't believe your answers. What were they kind of grilling you on during the hearing?
So the first one they really kept asking me was, what are the biggest issues facing students on campus? I mentioned 2 things that I thought were some of the bigger issues on campus right now. So one of them was the student union project, which the Student Government Association is currently putting up half of the funds for. So in a lot of ways, and there's not been a lot of transparency with this process and sort of what's going on. So I thought just holding someone accountable and kind of just reminding everyone of what's going on with that and kind of making sure things are going right was important. And the other one was, how would I promote positive dialogue? Because I kept mentioning, promoting good dialogue with the administration. And I thought that my involvement with the College Republicans would have made that pretty apparent. We've had 3 events this year. One was one of the biggest political events on campus and the biggest for our College Republicans chapter, bringing Sean Spicer. So I just thought that they constantly asked me these 2 questions, and I I was quite confused why. I thought I gave them pretty solid answers both times.
Was there any specific feedback about you being part of the Republican Party? I know you also mentioned in the article that was written, a number of the articles that were written, you ended up having a conversation with them about your Christianity. How did that emerge?
Yeah, so they asked me, so no, there's nothing directly against my political involvements in terms of questioning. They didn't say because you're a Republican X, but they did ask me, do I think I can positively, do you believe that I can work with every student in this body to make a positive impact on this campus? And I kind of gave my Christian background as an example. I came from the Church of the Dover Church, and it's a part of the United Church of Christ, which is extremely open and affirming to all people. And so I've worked with tons of people from all backgrounds, and I've accepted all people of all backgrounds through my religious upbringing. So yeah, nothing was exactly questioning my political beliefs explicitly in the questioning, but I think the attitudes that I was given because I mentioned it were quite apparent, and that made it quite apparent that they had some sort of bias against what I had to say to them.
Well, what happened next? Once you gave your answers and then they seemed kind of incredulous, right? They kept asking you the same question to make sure you really believed those things. What happened then?
Yeah, so I said during my, when I mentioned the church, I also said some of my best friends are Democrats. I wasn't really the best answer I could have gave, but I mean, they started laughing at me, which is, for a body that's constantly saying it's toxic and shows a lack of respect from its own members, to then give that attitude towards someone who's up there presenting them with ideas and policies, I think is pretty outrageous.
Well, it is remarkable, as you pointed out, that people who came after you were out the door in 2 or 3 minutes. And as far going back 10 years, as far as you know, we don't have any evidence of anybody else being treated the way you did. Maybe it happened, but we have no proof of this. So then did they vote? Was the vote open in public in front of you, or did they vote in private?
No, it was open in front of me. So yeah, they did a raise of hands, and I required a 2/3 supermajority, and I think I received a majority at least, but I think because of the amount of abstentions, people were potentially afraid of voting in favor of me, that eventually my motion was shot down.
Do you have any chance or inclination to reach out to the student government again or to the university to seek redress for what happened?
I would be willing to speak with university administrators for sure over the issue. I'm more than willing to sit down and talk with someone. It's just right now at the Student Government Association, I don't know if it's maybe my best interest to be speaking with them, but with the university for sure, I think there are certain policies that just weren't followed during that hearing, and I'd be more than happy to talk to anyone.
Well, I think that's a good idea. And Richard Cullen, we thank you and appreciate you for your time today. Good luck in the future. I mean, stick to your guns. It's going to get you a lot farther in the long run, I think. But thanks for joining us. When I read about Richard's story and I listen to the interview that he just gave, the thing that strikes me again and again and again is the laughter. That the student government peers whose job it was to listen to his qualifications and allow him to serve as a senator, something they had done for years and years and years without incident with any candidate, that laughter, they laughed in his face when Richard said, look, I have lots of Democrats that are friends, after they grilled him about his willingness to be inclusive. I talk to all sorts of people who don't share my worldview. They collectively laughed at him. That laughter is the laughter of complicity. That laughter is in some ways worse than just telling him to his face, you know what, you're Christian and conservative, and we don't want you here. This is mocking him as an individual, mocking his claims, mocking his background and his upbringing. To me, that's the biggest indictment of all of this, and that's the one thing that no one's taking seriously here. Either he deserves to be a senator, which is clearly the case, or you can come up with reasons not to. But the fact that you feel comfortable enough as progressive students to look him in the eye and laugh at him says a lot more about you than it does him. And that's the Final Fix. Be sure to stay up on all the latest news and information from the College Fix by joining us on all of our many social media platforms. For the Campus Roundup, I'm Dr. Duke, and we'll see you next time.